What's up, everyone? This is a 10 to 15 minute routine for runners that are really targeting every kind of angle of the hip that we can get into. So we've got a bunch of tissue stuff, we've got some actual joint and stretch stuff. So whether you've got glute pain or hip flexor issues or whatnot, going through this entire routine, again, 10 to 15 minutes, just sit down and watch a TV show and do it or something, is a great call for you. So let's dig into it.
Up and say hi. And hello, everyone. Here we are.
Nate has now learned how to run this by himself.
I feel very excited because I feel like I just learned how to parallel park again for the first time.
I was a driving coach.
And you have your expectant yet judgy parent there, and you're just like hoping you don't mess it up, and you're just like,
he is a little nervous. Like, oh,
I'm a little nervous.
Like, you know, the thing is that it's for his own good, for his own safety. That's really the issue here.
You say that, something like that. Oh my goodness.
So basically, this is the start of my vacation a few hours ago, but I'm gonna leave Nate to it because we have a guest today, and I'm gonna go pack.
Yeah, go do your thing, man. Get out of here.
I'll see you guys in a few weeks.
I'm going to pull up the comments here to see if this thing is actually working and you guys are talking to me and whatnot. We have a great show today, episode number 63, which is pretty crazy that we've done this 63 times. Yet here we are, another week. Just me today, guys. Coach Nate coming at you out of TRE HQ. Craig is beginning his descent or descent into madness, his ascent from this deep dive of work he's been on, slowly coming back up to the surface so he can get on some good old vacation. Checking in with some of you guys. John's Conscious Life, first commenter. What's up, John? Vulneratus Non-Victus, hello. David, what's up? Nate is driving. I know, scary guys. Things get messed up, I guess we can only really blame me here. Daniel, I have cross country today. Daniel, that is exciting. I remember doing races on Thursday. Those are always fun. I think I had races on Wednesday. I can't remember. Jamila says, what's up? John, how are you doing? Heather, hey guys, coming at you from Denver. And Nate, you're doing a fine job. Thanks. Well, we're only 4 minutes in, so we'll see how that goes. GDK Mouse says, what's up from UK? Carrie, hello. Edward, the salmon are running in formation. Edward, you've been getting a lot of rain up in Alaska, and I am curious how that affects the population of delicious things in the water. David, what's up, Nate? Jürgen from Bavaria, Germany, always very exciting. Bavaria is a great place. If you guys haven't been or you have the opportunity to go, they've got delicious sausages. They've got incredible beer. There are mountains nearby. I mean, what is not to like about those things? And of course, if you're in Bavaria and like a month from now, you're pretty excited about Oktoberfest, which looks crazy. Well, maybe if you are from Bavaria, you're not excited about Oktoberfest because it's when the whole world descends onto Munich. But it is a pretty good time. If you can kind of helicopter in for a couple hours or a day, it's pretty darn cool. They serve these steins of beer in 1 liter style glasses. It's pretty nuts. If you can drink more than one, you are amazing. I think I knocked down 2, and that kind of knocked me out for the rest of the day. Karen says, what's up? Kelly, hello. Rocio, hello from Austin, Texas. John's Conscious Life, Nova Scotia, Canada. Gary, Dublin. Edward Wickham, sausage and beer. Exactly, my friend. Vulneratus, that's on my list. And of course, the beer. Yeah, so if you're Germany, you could go do the Berlin Marathon in September, hang out for an extra week or 2, and go hit up Oktoberfest. It sounds like a pretty good deal. So, on the docket for today, I want to make sure I get all my, X's in a row, is the topic today. We are going to be talking about how to descend like a champ. And I really like to talk about downhill running. One, because over the years, it's been a personal weakness of mine. I've got some interesting stories I want to share there. But I've realized it's such a key thing. For those of you guys who live in hillier areas, for those of you who do a lot of trail running, It's super important to be good at descending. But a lot of marathons these days are net downhill. This is kind of an open secret with the Boston Marathon, but you start inland above sea level and then you finish at sea level. So it is this net downhill. If you don't do it right, or if you're not prepared for it, it can really trash your quad. So getting good at this whole descending thing is super important with practice. It also brings in our guest today. We're going to have Coach Paul Carmona from the Revel Race Series. Now, if you guys haven't checked out the Revel Race Series, it is pretty interesting. They are hosting these half and full marathons in these very beautiful places. One I looked at was Mount Lemmon on Tucson. Another one is up in Utah. And they have these pretty extreme descending races. Like I'm talking descending, 2,000 or 3,000 feet in a half marathon and 5,000+ feet in a full marathon, right? It's just like running down a mountain the whole time. And they've figured out how to make this a Boston qualifier course. So, you could go ahead and do these races in this really beautiful area of the country. Point-to-point races are always really fun, and you can get this pretty stellar downhill Boston Marathon qualifying time. So Paul's going to be calling in a 10-12 minutes, something like that. Paul, if you're listening, stay tuned. That's where things are going to get interesting, guys. I've driven this far, but when we start piping in Skype and I have to get the headphones right and all that stuff, so I'll ask for your patience ahead of time. We have a giveaway with Revel Races and Paul, and if you hit that Gleam link, you will get a free entry into any one of their 2019 events. And guys, the races are really, really cool. Just to pull them up to show you like the options that you have. There's, as I said, a race in Utah in September that's absolutely beautiful. We have Big Bear, Southern California on October 14th, Tucson, Arizona, November 3rd on Mount Lemmon, which is gorgeous. Canyon City, I think it's an old one. Next year we have Hawaii, Waikoloa, Hawaii, Mount Charleston, Las Vegas, Nevada next April. We've got Rockies, Denver in June, you could run there. Mount Hood in Portland, Oregon. Some of the more beautiful places to run. So hey, kind of a fun thing, a little bit of a different style marathon and half. You can get a free entry. Just click that link in the Gleam and you will get there. And as I said, we'll get a chance to talk to Paul, talk about these races, and specifically I wanted to pick his brain on how to train for a net 5,000 foot drop race, which again to me is pretty nuts. What are you guys saying here? Yamini says, hello. Daniel Krapp, I'm from Wisconsin. What's up? Roger, good morning from Auckland. Dude, you're in the future right now, which is always so trippy. It's already Friday. We're over here just kind of getting to the end of the week, and you're pretty much all the way there. Heather says, Slacker half marathon, 2,000 feet net drop. Shredded my quads for days. Obviously need this. Yeah, they're coming out, right? Carla says, I'm here. Hello, everyone. Hello from the hot as hell Texas-Mexico border. No kidding. You're not going to get too much reprieve for a few more months now, so stay strong there. Audrey says, hi, greetings from South Africa. Where in South Africa? I lived there in college for a little bit. I went to Rhodes University in Grahamstown on the Eastern Cape. Super fun. Samarjeet says, Samarjeet Bank from Guwahati, 25th. I'm doing the Sora 42K, doing a marathon. Very exciting. And then we got Nicole, greetings from Jamaica. I love this. You guys are really coming from all over the place. And then Edward said there's also a Revel race just outside of Las Vegas. Have you guys done any of the Revel races? I'd love to know in the chat what you have going on there. Now, for these downhill races, I wanted to go through a few things. I think I've gotten most of my X's and O's out of the way. I remember, well, first of all, I remember running the Boston Marathon back in college in 2004, and I got to do it as a charity. Didn't even really know it was a qualifying thing. Grew up watching the race. I got the opportunity to run through Boston College, which was right on the course. and a super incredible experience for me. It actually really got me hooked into the stuff I'm doing right now. I remember my quads being so shredded after that I was walking funny for 2 days, and it was just, combination of my first marathon. I trained pretty hard for it, so I pushed, and that net downhill, I didn't realize that later was a thing, was hard. The challenge living in places like New England is that you're on just a lot of rolling terrain, so you don't have like a lot of extended downhills to hit. And truth be told, I never thought about it. I was never coached to do it. The time that it really became a thing, and when I noticed, I was like, man, I kind of suck at this, was when I was living in South Africa. I ran the Two Oceans marathon, which is a lie. It's not really a marathon. It's a 56 kilometers. So funny backstory, I thought I was signing up for a marathon when in fact I signed up for my first 35-mile ultra run on the road. Fun, who knew? And I ended up training for that, and there's this portion of the climb, or of the training, where you go through kind of some lowland parts of Cape Town, and then you do this really long climb that goes up to, I think, called Chapman's Peak, and it's climbing from like mile 16 or 17 like up to 20. And then like mile 20 to 23 is this super long downhill. I trained a lot of the climbs, was feeling really good. I was just passing people, but then I just had this like 3 mile steady long descent, and I just got passed by people that I blew by on the uphills, and I didn't know what I could do. It was one of the first times I really felt like I hit my limit on my descending, and I was like, man, I am not good at this. I need to work on it. Fast forward coming into the Bay Area now, living and running on a lot of the trails, I'm forced with these steeper descents all the time. And the trick with the descending guys is we're always being pulled at speeds faster than we're normally comfortable running. We're seeing greater levels of impact. We're seeing a bigger stride. Just everything is exaggerated when we go downhill. And I used to think, hey, I could just relax and be loose on the downhill. You still need to be relaxed from a fluidity standpoint, but downhill is still work. I still need to be working on staying focused, staying engaged, keeping that turnover high for the downhill part. And you can actually train your downhills with some downhill tempo runs and intervals and the like. Fast forward, last year I ran the North Face 50K, a lot of downhill practice, 1 to 2 mile descents where you're just really cruising. Felt great, and I didn't really notice my descending skills until just recently, a month ago, when I ran the SF half marathon. And I'm like running, you're like 5-6 miles into the race, you're with the people that you're running with, and I noticed on the flats and the uphills we were very even, but as soon as I'd hit the downhill, I was just opening up these huge gaps. And there's a lot of downhills on that second half of the marathon course. So I really made up a lot of time on those downhills. It was one of the first times where it's like, oh yeah, I don't know if I suck at downhills anymore. This is kind of cool. Audrey says, Cape Town, Two Oceans Marathon. That's right. Lovely and reason to come back. You must try the Comrades Ultra between Pete Maritzburg and Durban. 91K down run. Next year up from Durban to PMB. Audrey, I actually almost did Comrades because I was training for all these training with all these runners at the time who were going to run that, but I ultimately decided that, hey, I'm 21 years old and maybe I should pump the brakes. But super fun, guys. It is a point-to-point race that goes from 2 different cities. One year is kind of a net down year, and another year they switch it up and it's a net up year, which is pretty cool. Rocio says, what a coincidence. Paul's my running coach in Austin. Shout out to this 26-2 Marathon Training Club. Oh, Rocio, that is awesome. You'll have to give us the dirt on Paul and what questions to ask him. He's calling in from Austin today, which is super fun. And actually, chances are we will be in Austin later this year if the running event is still there in December, and maybe we could go on a run with you guys. That would be super fun. Mr. Worldwide says, this channel helps me a lot. Thank you, Run Experience. Right back at you. Thanks for watching. Dan says, I'm hoping to do the Two Oceans next year. It is such a cool race, guys. I really, really enjoyed it. Most of the The ultras, I would probably stick more in the trails again, but if I were to do a road ultra, I would consider that for sure. I think I need a little bit of water here. So he asked, how did you train for the downhill? So this next part was exposure to the downhills and intention. You know, anytime we get closer to a race, we want to start thinking about specificity, this idea that we need our training to more closely mirror the demands of the race itself. If you live in the area, for example, where the race is being held, running on the course takes care of this, and that's why it's nice to have home field advantage. So for example, if you live in New York and you get to run through the boroughs, you're really running for the unique advantages of the New York City Marathon. If you are in LA or Chicago or wherever, you have that opportunity to hit it. For a lot of races where there aren't that many distinguishing features, it's flat to rolling, you can pretty easily mimic that elsewhere. But what gets challenging is when you, say, are training for a gnarly ultra run with tons of hills and you live in Florida. Or you're running for a race that's really, really hot and you're doing this really hot race in Costa Rica in March and you're training in Boston and New York where you're freezing your butt off. That's where you have to get a little bit more creative. I've seen some treadmills that actually have the ability to go downhill. So you can't just do a positive grade, but you can do a negative grade as well. And what you could do is start to think about, okay, how much downhill descending is happening? Can I do some, 3 by 5 minutes, downhill at my intended pace or a little bit faster, in addition to my other flat and rolling terrain, like in some of those long runs, just to get exposed to it and just to make sure I feel real comfortable there. I think that obviously if you have access to hills and downhills in the actual course or just in the terrain around your place, go ahead and hit that too. Even if you end up running loops, like you hit this long uphill and then you come back and do the descent, hit this long uphill, come back and do the descent. It doesn't always have to be the focus of the uphill. You could almost think about recovery on the uphill, kind of going slow and steady, and then you're gonna push the descent versus the normal setup, which is I'm going to really push the uphill and then I'm just going to dog it on the descent. So that's a way to do these things. And what's nice, if you are, talking to Edward, who's getting into power with running, you'll notice that a lot of us run way above our power levels on the uphill, and then we're way down on the downhill. So by going a little easier on the uphill and pushing the descent, you're going to have a much more even power profile. Another good question, should we land on the heel or midfoot for downhill? So there's always going to be a variance here. It depends on how steep the hill is, right? If I am going something that's really, really steep, I'm going to be putting the brakes on like crazy and my heels might be going out in front of me a little much. But if I'm doing that excessively, that's putting a lot of force through the quads. The reason why our quads get blown out is that eccentric contraction that really messes us up. And if I'm doing that needlessly because I'm just kind of flinging my legs out in front of me, by the time I get to the flats or the uphill again, like I'm gonna be burned out. So I still wanna think about keeping my feet underneath me, pulling back, pulling up and over, keeping that cadence high. And that should keep my feet, for the most part, landing more underneath my center of mass in the middle. And a helpful way to think about it is not which part of your foot hits the ground, but where your foot hits the ground in relation to, say, your hips. And I've heard this described, like, let's say this is your forearm, right? Let's say this is my foot and this is my hip right here. If my foot is landing way in front, my shin is going to be pointing backwards. That's not really good. What I want to make sure is that every time my foot hits the ground, it's actually pretty straight or even going this way, because that means my center of mass is this way and I travel this way. But if I fling my legs out, boom, boom, I get slammed, and that is no good. So good questions here. Now, it is 12:20, so we have to get our guest in here, which means that I need to get Craig's headphones to get this thing rolling.
Don't worry.
Don't worry. Craig, do you want to say hi real quick?
Hey, yo.
Here we go.
All right.
So let's get our Skype going here, and we will make sure that Paul is ready to call in. I'm gonna.
That work out?
Yep, I heard a little thing there.
Okay.
Craig MD in Australia. That is not correct.
That is not correct.
That is not correct. Should be USA, and we are ready for you. Okay. I also gave him my cell phone so he could call me if he needs to.
Let's see if we can find him. What's his name?
His name is Paul.
Oh, right.
We're looking for a guy on Skype. Carmona. He should be in Texas. So let's see if he gets this email and responds back. But meanwhile, we will just hang and wait till he gets on the show.
Sounds good. Okay, so you should be able to hear.
Yep, I can hear through the Skype, which is great.
Cool.
And I will continue to take your guys' questions until he gets on.
Hi, guys. I'm gonna go back to packing.
He's going to go back to packing. Guys, there is no green smoothie today because as much as I occasionally heckle Craig on the smoothies, I do really appreciate
15 smoothies yesterday.
You made 15?
15. They're all frozen in the freezer for my camping trip.
Pre-frozen smoothies.
That's right.
Dang, that is the real deal right there. Oh wow. And I think he probably learned some things from Elise last week, who is our guest on there. So, Audrey says, so true. I run down hills in Pete Maritzburg, and one hill is 9 kilometers long. That's like 5.5 miles and 560 meters up and downwards. I run this once a week in between smaller hills, e.g. 50 to 100 meters up and down. That's really good. Robbie Sweet says, I've got a marathon in Glencoe, Scotland coming up next month. 1,600 meters of climb and descent coming. Looking forward to the advice tonight. For sure. If you can get out on those courses and practice those things, that is going to be super big. Kanan says, pelvis position. This is getting back to our earlier thing about the running position. I need to keep my abs on and my hips forward, and that's going to keep my pelvis pretty neutral. I always want to run with a neutral pelvis. There's never a time that I purposely want it, tipped really forward excessively in either direction. In fact, if I'm running a little loosey-goosey, my hips are going to be swiveling a ton and my hips are going to be dropping a ton, which is really no good. Let's see here. I'm getting a message from Mr. Paul. Let's see if we get here. He's on Skype now. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Can you call us or on Craig MD? Here we go. Thanks guys for your patience here. We'll see what's happening here with this. And then we will get this going. Always fun playing with technology. Don't like it. This is why everyone needs a Craig in their life. Yeah, Elise was awesome last week, Edward, wasn't she? She was super informative. It's a fun book. We are going to do the giveaway from last week where you are going to get a copy of the Run Fast, Cook Fast, Eat Slow book. So this is happening next week. Super stoked about it. That's going to be that option for you guys. In fact, if you still want to enter, you could go to last week's show, hit the Gleam Wink. We will be doing that in a little bit. Which will be awesome. Here we go. So, I'm having a little trouble connecting with Paul here, so we shall see what happens and if we're able to get him on. Meanwhile, it's just going to be you and me hanging out right now. So, we've talked a little bit about downhill. My kind of key points with this one are specificity as you get closer to your race, study the course, pay attention to the hills, where they're coming from, where they are, and start to prepare for it. Start to practice this stuff. Getting it in your weekly runs. You don't have to hammer it downhill every single time, but at least once or twice a week. If you could try to get some downhills on your long runs where you're just not pushing super hard, but just staying focused there, that will be really good. And then also, let's see here. We got Paul calling in from my phone. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm sorry we had trouble getting you connected on Skype.
Yeah, that's no problem. I was looking up and typed in and tell me, right?
Oh no, it's supposed to be Craig MD. He's I gave you that. That didn't work. Well, you know what? We'll see. We'll see if this works right here. I'm gonna put my phone, pretty close to our setup here, so we can see if this is actually working.
Are you going ghetto?
Paul, you still there?
Yes.
All right, cool.
So did he not find us on Skype?
He did not find us on Skype.
Did you look at Craig MD?
No, I see the word CRAIGMD, Craig MD.
Can you just put in my full name in? Craig Dos Santos?
Let me try that one.
We're doing this. Because isn't this fun? Aren't you really glad you get to be involved on these, parts of the shows?
Craig
I know.
MD
David's coming in for tech support.
Yeah. So do you want me to do video or phone on Skype?
Let's do video.
Let's do video. Let's see you.
Let's do video, guys.
Or tell me what your name is and I'll find you that way. Second.
I believe it's Paul Carmona.
Yeah, there's a bunch of Paul Carmonas on there.
Okay. Well, let's see.
Hey guys, can you hear Paul right now on the phone? They probably can't hear too well. Hold on, guys, as we get this figured out. We will have Paul on Skype in a second, talking about the Revel Race Series, these crazy net downhill runs. We'll also be picking his brain, as he's an experienced run coach himself. Be working on these downhill runs as we go.
Okay.
Here we go. So we're getting that sorted out. Isn't it nice? Craig is left, but he can never really leave.
Mm-hmm.
He can never really leave. Here we go. So we're trying to get this set up. Oh, we can hear Paul. They can hear him. It may not be the best sound, but they can hear him. Yeah, we're going to get that fixed. Here we go. All right. Hey, there he is. Perfect.
All right, can you hear him in there?
I can hear you here. So we are going to transition this over. And now we have Paul. Guys, I did it all by myself. I didn't even need Craig.
Congratulations.
Oh my! No, I'm kidding. I needed that thing. I think it's a thing with run coaches and technology. Who knew? I'm the same. So Paul, you are coming in from Austin.
That's correct.
That is great. How is it? How's the heat down there this time of year?
It's pretty brutal. Over 100 degrees every day. If you choose to run in the morning, it's 70s, upper 70s, and the humidity is about 1,000%. So,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is warm.
one or the other.
Yeah, that is quite warm. And are you from Austin, Texas? You've been there for a long time, or did you move down there?
I've been in Austin 33 years. It's my 33rd summer in a row to be here.
So you said 30 years?
33, yes.
Wow, no kidding. Hold on, we're getting some clicking noises, which is usually something. I'll see if I can get Craig back in here to try to help us out. Noises are gone now? All right, here we go. We'll take it. So super excited to have you in on our live show. It is always fun being able to pipe people in via Skype. it always takes a little extra elbow grease on the back end just to kind of make that happen. So we get you on our YouTube show as well. So welcome. And Paul, how long have you been involved with Revel Races?
I've been the coach for the online program for a little over, I guess, 2.5 years. I ran my first Revel marathon almost 5 years ago in 2013.
Wow. And what made you sign up for the race?
I've been running marathons since 2001, and just last month ran my 61st, so I was running a lot of marathons at the time. And
wow.
I had qualified for Boston some years ago and run Boston a couple of times, and then a friend of mine asked me to run for a charity in 2013. So I went and ran the Boston Marathon in 2013, and of course that was the year of the bombings. And I had run it before a couple of times and wasn't really that keen on going back to Boston just because I had run it and I was doing other things. But after the 2013 experience, I thought, well, now I need to go qualify. I need to come back in 2014. At the time, with the faster qualifying times and you needing to beat your times by several minutes, I thought, well, I need to go find a fast downhill course and run a fast qualifier because I wanted to beat my time by 5 minutes. And so I ran Big Cottonwood and beat my time by just over 5 minutes.
Incredible. So, take me through that because, there's the big push on looking for, BQ friendly races that are also fun experiences. What were your options? What were the other races that you were considering in addition to the Revel race in Cottonwood?
I had looked at, I had already run another one in Salt Lake City known as the Deseret Marathon, which drops about, I want to say it's about 2,500 feet or so. I had run Tucson before in the Tucson Marathon that's in December, which drops just under 1,800 feet. I looked at, I'd coached people for California International, which drops, I think it's about 350 feet. And so I looked at different downhill races like that. The one in Big Cottonwood happened to be, the date in September was the last day to qualify for Boston 2014. So I said, well, I'm putting all my eggs into this one basket. And I looked at the course profile and said, am I reading this correctly? Because it says it drops over 5,000 feet. And so I thought, well, apparently that's correct. And so I went and ran the race, and it was dramatically downhill. And I'm getting ready to run it again in just over 2 weeks. It'll be my 5th time to run Big Cottonwood.
Incredible. So I want to get more into the Revel races and how people get involved with them and kind of what makes them, a different or unique beast in the the running racing world these days. But we were just talking about before you came on how runners can better prepare for downhill running and these net downhill races. So what did you do in that first race in your net downhill? That was that first net 5,000 foot drop, and were there any things that you learned from that or that you have since adjusted? The perspective of like, okay, I did this the first time. What was that experience like?
Sure. Well, the number one thing about racing downhill is that you have to train yourself to run faster than you normally run, right? So I'm 54 years old, and so qualifying for me is now 3:40, but I still try to run about a 3:30 in a marathon. At least that's my goal, right? So I call it my beacon pace. It's sort of the pace where I lock in is 8 minutes a mile. When 8 minutes a mile converts to a 1:45 half and a 3:30 marathon. But when I go run downhill race, I have to get ready for running significantly faster than 8 minutes a mile. So I'll find myself running 7:30, 7:40, 7:20. Some of these races I'm in the low sevens. And so I think that experience is similar for other runners, that it's easier to run downhill, right? And so some of the criticism you'll hear is that, oh, it's easy to run fast downhill. Well, it is, but it's difficult to sustain it for 26 miles, right? So
it becomes its own thing. And just sorry to interrupt you. So you are literally, if you are on a flatter course, an 8-minute guy, when on these downhill races, you're targeting, you said, anywhere from a 740 to a 720?
That's correct. That's right.
Wow.
And so but all of the courses are slightly different, right? We're talking
Sure,
about
of
Big
course.
Cottonwood. There are other ones, and so there are some races that there's a profile. The profile will have some climbs towards the end, or most of them flatten out a little bit towards the end. So when you're dropping 350 feet, 400 feet in the first few miles, that's not going to be the case at the end of the race. So what you have to do is you have to train yourself to run on tired legs a little bit more than normal in a marathon, right? For those who've run marathons or half marathons before, you have to train your body to sustain intensity in the latter miles of the race. That's even more so when you're running a downhill race, because you have to train yourself to do two things. One is run faster than you normally run, right? And so you got to train consistently 20 to 30 seconds faster than your ultimate goal pace. And then you have to train yourself to sustain goal pace, like 8 minutes a mile for me, on some very tired legs. So with that background, you then build a training plan that focuses on those elements.
So I'm really glad you brought the training plan element up. Again, I love going back to that first experience, and I want to hear how you prepare other runners for that. But how much of that was obvious or apparent to you back when you ran this for the first time? Did you feel like your training was pretty dialed in, or have you changed a lot since then?
It wasn't. I had a good idea because I had run Tucson before, the Tucson Marathon in December. And so I had an idea about the intensity of a downhill race and what it does to your body in the last 10K and the difficulties you face in the last 6 to 10 miles. And so what I did was I changed my training program to include a lot of downhill repeats in the middle of a long run, for example. So people thinking, well, I'm going to go run a downhill race. So I'm going to go out on, let's say, a Monday, a Tuesday, Thursday night, and I'm going to go find a hill and I'm going to do a whole bunch of downhill repeats. Well, that's great, but you're fresh. Your total volume for the night might be 6-8 miles. But instead, if you think about scheduling a long run where you might run about 6 or 7 miles to warm up, right? And then you start running downhill repeats that are 1 mile to 2 miles long. And you run a downhill repeat faster than your goal pace. Then you turn around and run back up the hill, tire your legs out some more, run downhill faster than your goal pace again, turn around, climb again. And you do these downhill repeats of 3, 4, 5 times. So your volume of up and downhill might be 6 to 12 miles of up and downhill. And then when you've done that, then you run 3 or 4 more miles for your long run and try to equal the pace that you started out with. So let's say 5 miles to warm up, 5 miles to cool down at the end. You're trying to equal your pace at both ends, and in the middle, you've got 6, 8, 10, maybe 12 miles of downhill repeats that's significantly faster than your goal pace. That simulates a little bit of what these races are like.
Interesting. So, Mark asked a question, how does focusing on a downhill race impact hill work during training? You've addressed this a little bit, maybe more specifically for those long downhill intervals. Are you still kind of pushing hard on the uphill portion, or is it more of the emphasis on the downhill and a little bit easier on the way up? Or are you just kind of pushing full gas in either direction?
Definitely not pushing hard on the climbs, because although these races, the Revel races, depending on the course, do have some climbing to them, that's generally insignificant. And so you might have, there are some exceptions to that. For example, Mount Lemmon is mostly downhill. You lose over 5,000 feet total. At mile 3 to mile 4 climbs, I want to say it's 280 some feet. And you're at elevation, 8,000 feet of elevation. But it's so early in the race. I advise runners and I coach runners to just slow down and take it easy on the climb and conserve your energy for the downhill. So in the training, we don't do a whole lot of uphill emphasis. There is some very little.
Yeah.
In the overall hill training, we probably emphasize uphill effort about 10% because most of what you
Interesting. Now, do you look at, for example, one of our coaches is in Colorado, Kirk, and he does a lot of trail running in the mountains. And he a lot of times talks about his weekly volume, not in terms of mileage, but in terms of vertical that he's gained or descended. Are you thinking something similar with training for these net downhill races? Are you trying to get your runners to think about like, okay, how much descending have I done over the week or in these long runs, in addition to the mileage itself?
No, we don't. And there's a reason for that is because I'm coaching people through the Revel online coaching program, right? It's the official coaching program that is with the Revel Race Series. I'm coaching people that live in Houston, which is dead flat, and people who live in Florida. Some folks live in Tampa, Miami, Chicago, places that are very flat. I've got a runner I've coached in Nebraska, and they say, look, I don't have any hills around me. What do I do? So I heard you earlier talking about a treadmill with a decline option. I actually own one with a decline option. I can go up to 5% downhill.
Oh,
but
wow.
Austin's pretty hilly, so we're lucky around Austin. We get a lot of hills here, but with runners all over the country, I tell them, if you don't have downhill, then here's some options, what you can do to simulate downhill running. And so the emphasis is not to do a whole lot of downhill to count your volume downhill. I understand the point that you're talking about of the trail runners who count their vert, right? They refer to their vert, total vert today, total vert the total week, and that's different. The emphasis on these downhill races is speed, getting your legs used to turning over quickly, getting used to, here's a perfect example. I coach a runner who says, my fastest mile is, 7:30. And this runner, say it's a 40-year-old woman, and she can run a 7:30, but that's about it, right? She can't really sustain it. And her goal marathon pace might be about 9 minutes a mile. So what I tell her is, okay, you need to get used to running 8:15 to 8:30 for 10 miles or more. And that's a pretty hard effort for someone whose goal effort is 10. So we don't just jump into the training and say, okay, now go out and try to run 8:30, 8:15 a mile. Instead, we gradually introduce with downhill repeats, with speed work, with threshold work. We do a gradually build up over a 20 to 24 week period, this ability to, number one, hit the faster speeds, because some people just can't early on, and two, the ability to sustain it.
That's great. Now, how is this affecting runners when they go back to regular races, right? So they've done this 20-week block focusing on a lot of like net downhill. They've done this race. Are they noticing any types of changes or improvements in, say, the regular half and marathon times?
That's a good question. I've never done that analysis, and although I've coached a lot of runners, particularly locally in Austin, that I see all the time, I generally don't keep up with very many of the runs I coach through Revel. I have coached some at Revel Races who then go run Boston races or other races. They move on to New York, Chicago, wherever. And so I generally keep up with them that way, but I have not done that study. I'll tell you my personal experience is that a lot of this coming up in 2 weeks will be my 18th Revel marathon. So it's my 18th downhill Revel race, although I've mentioned I've done some other non-Revel downhill races. And over the years, I've noticed that doing a lot of downhill training and doing a lot of downhill racing has improved my ability to, number one, run downhill and race downhill, and two, recover. So you hear people say, oh, I ran Big Cottonwood and I couldn't walk for a week. Right? I couldn't run. I couldn't run at all for a week. I'm usually able to go out and run one of these marathons, run a Boston qualifier, come home on Sunday, and Monday I'm out running 3 or 4 miles again, because my legs recover very, very quickly from the training, because I've done a lot of downhill training, and so I'm not out running super fast speeds, but I am able to run 3, 4, 5 miles, and maybe the week right after a Revel race, I can get my volume up to 25, 30 miles a week. The week right after a race.
Amazing. So there's two key questions I want to hit. But for those of you guys who are just chiming in, we're talking to Paul Carmona of Revel Races. He's calling in from Austin, the very hot and steamy Austin, Texas right now. And we were talking about downhill running and how to specifically tackle these net downhill marathons and half marathons. This week's giveaway is a very generous free entry into any one of the 2019 Revel Races. You could race in Hawaii. I was just looking at the things. Big Bear, Southern California is this fall. Mount Lemmon in Arizona is this fall. Next spring we have Hawaii, we've got Las Vegas, we have the Rockies and Mount Hood. Just epic places to run. So Paul, two more questions here, and then I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Revel Races themselves.
Okay.
One of them was more of an adaptation on running technique for downhill. What type of tips do you give to your runners from a running form perspective when they're doing so much descending? Or another way to think about it would be, do you see what are common mistakes you see people making when they start running downhill a lot that would that they could prevent?
Sure. I think the top two mistakes that runners make running downhill is one, braking. The natural, we've all experienced when we're walking down a steep decline that we tend to lean back, right? And we brake so that we're not falling forward. You have to overcome that, and it does take some practice. And by the way, our training plans do have a lot of downhill practice early. Before we start downhill intensity, we start downhill practice to get the feel for how to run downhill efficiently.
Very cool.
So there are lots of different tips and body adjustments you make, dealing with lowering your hands, keeping your stride rate very high, keeping your turnover very high, keeping your feet low to the ground, and just sort of body technique. So you take yourself from running on a flat surface to running on a downhill surface, and what your body position looks like, your head position, your hand position, your legs, your knees, everything. So you practice that technique so that you become better and more efficient and more comfortable with that downhill. And then second, once you've done that, is you get the sensation of turning over your feet very quickly so that you're not braking. So braking is the number one mistake runners make running downhill. Two, the second common mistake is probably overstriding. Runners, if you think about the days when we were all kids and we're out at field day and we're running with our friends and we're running down a hill and you're taking these big, long, loping strides, right? And you're sort of bounding down this hill. If you do that in any downhill race, whether it's a marathon or half, you're not going to last for very long.
Yeah, it's expensive.
So the runners that I work with locally, we do a lot of downhill work where we work on downhill form, because I do train a lot of people for the Austin Marathon, which is very hilly, and so they've got climbs and descents, and so we work on downhill form and how to be very efficient running downhill. So technique-wise, top two, number one and number two is leaning back and braking, and then number two is really just taking too big of steps and overstriding and sort of loping or bounding down the hill, which does two things. It's number one, it is overstriding and braking at the same time.
Exactly, right? You get the double whammy right there. So the other question we got has to do with, really this is from Tanya Morgan, just asking about any type of non-running activities that would help support this training. And this could be strength training or any type of cross training or injury prevention work. Are there any things that you personally do or have experience with or recommend for your runners?
Yes, absolutely. Number one thing is to strengthen your quads. And there are, of course, everybody knows about doing squats and doing leg presses and different exercises that you can do to strengthen your quads, but those require weights, right? You got to have weights, you have to have a gym, or you have to have equipment to do that. So I have advocated, and folks could find this if they go to the Revel Race Series Facebook page and they look at the videos.
Okay.
There is a video on there that I've done that is called literally the title of the video is The One Exercise You Need for Downhill Racing, and it's called Quad Isolation Exercises. And I actually got it from the web and a British coach who was coaching runners to run uphill and downhill, and he had this one exercise that are these quad isolation exercises, and it's So viewers can go to the Revel Race Series Facebook page, look at the videos, and find the one that's called quad isolation exercises. That exercise simulates the eccentric force that you get running downhill.
Yeah.
And it's something you can start off.
Yeah, can you describe it a little bit? Like, what is it, like, let's paint a little picture. What does it look like? Is it like a wall sit? Are you...
Sure, I can describe it. If you essentially think about yourself standing just normally, and you take one foot and put it on something behind you, like the perfect height is usually for most people is like a fireplace mantle, right? The low one, obviously not the one where you hang the stockings, but the low mantle, or something like a low footstool. You can take a suitcase and turn it on its side, so it's a low. A chair works just fine. So you're standing on one leg. Then you have the leg that you're standing on, you slightly bend it at the knee, so it's not a straight leg. And then all you do is you lower slightly. It's not a deep squat. And then you hop. You think about hopping up and down. So you take a short hop up and then lower again, and the short hop up and lower again. And you're not doing it very fast. It's a controlled landing and elevation. So you literally hop up. Your foot doesn't have to come off the floor more than about 2 inches. So you elevate. You land on your midfoot, right? You're not landing on your heel, and you're not landing on your toe. You're landing on the ball of your foot, going back to a slightly crouched position, and back up again and down. So you're just repeating this up and down hopping motion for 30 seconds. And then you switch legs. And same thing on the other leg. 30 seconds.
Okay, so your rear foot is elevated a little bit on that mantle or low box or chair. So you're in this like split squat position, and then you are hopping and driving off of that front leg, and then the back leg stays anchored on the ground, and you go 30 sec. Sorry.
Yeah, the back leg is anchored on the surface, the box or the chair, or whatever you've got behind you.
Okay, cool. And then you do 30 seconds with one leg forward, and then 30 seconds on the other side.
Exactly. Then you switch. So it's 30 seconds leg, 30 seconds left leg. Then you go back to 30 seconds right leg, back to 30 seconds left leg. And that's all we start with. I actually incorporate this exercise into the Revel online coaching program about halfway through the program. So I'm not overwhelming people with lots of things early. In a 24-week program, they start this at week 13. And so what we do is you do this exercise twice a week, like say Wednesday, Friday. And by the way, you can do this exercise anywhere. You can do it at home, you can do it at work, you can do it anywhere. So you do it 2 repetitions, right leg, left leg, 30 seconds apiece, and then repeat right leg, left leg. 2 repetitions twice a week. And then about 2 weeks later, we build up to 4 repetitions twice a week. And then 2 weeks later, 6 repetitions. And then 8 repetitions, and then 10. So at the end, what you're doing is 30 seconds on left leg, 30 seconds on right leg, times 10 twice a week. And over time, and folks think, oh, that doesn't sound very hard, but if you go do this for like 30 seconds, and again, it's not a very fast hop, you're not hopping up and down quickly, it's just sort of a gradual hop up, land down, hop up, land down. Over time, the idea of doing 30 seconds times 10 per leg is pretty exhausting. But
that's pretty brutal.
That exercise will simulate the eccentric force that you get running downhill. And that's probably the simplest, easiest exercise you can do to help prepare your quads for downhill racing.
I love it. Well, guys, all you will need to do to check out and find the Revel Racing Facebook page is to enter the giveaway. You might as well enter it because you could get a free entry to one of these races. And the way you could enter is hit the Gleam link. You could check out their Facebook page, follow it, check out some of their videos, and then when you get your free entry, you'll be able to start doing this exercise and get it tied in there. Well, Paul, I could keep talking on this stuff. I find this very fascinating. But Edward is reminding me is getting towards the end of the hour, which means that we need to be thinking about just wrapping things up a little bit. Where can runners find you? If they wanted to work with you in any way, you're doing like the online coaching. Is that for only athletes who sign up for the Revel Races, or are you coaching athletes outside the Revel Races too?
I'm coaching runners all over the country for Revel and non-Revel races. So the easiest way to find me is to go to the Revel Race Series page. It's runrevel.com. and then you click on training, and then you'll see information for online coaching programs, right? And on that page, it has how to contact me, and the email's very easy. It's coach@runrevel.com. So coach@runrevel.com. Then those are for the Revel Races, marathon and half marathon. But the Revel Race Series is owned by a company called Brooksy LLC, and Brooksy has got an online coaching program, and I coach for Brooksy. I'm coaching people who are running 100-mile ultras, 5K speed work, half marathons, marathons all over the country. So it's New York Marathon, Detroit Marathon, you name it. It's not just Revel Races. And so the motto for the Brooksy coaching program is any race, anywhere. So it's half marathon, marathon, 5K, 100K, 100-miler. So I've got a whole bunch of people across the country that I'm coaching, in addition to the ones that I coach locally for the 26-2 Marathon Club.
I love that. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciated your tips and experience and stories on all of your downhill running. Guys, make sure you check Paul out and you check out Revel Races.
Very good. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Take care.
Cheers.
We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. All right. So now the fun part, I get to zoom back into OBS here, transition this over, Shazam.
Boom.
Hey, I did it again, guys. I did it again. Craig is here. Yeah, it's already transitioned. We're all good, right?
Yeah.
We all good in the head for the most part?
I don't know why that
Well, guys, it is 12:58, which means we need to do the drawing from last week's really fun show with Elise on the Run Fast, Cook Fast, Eat Slow cookbook.
Oh, this is good. Guys, by the way, I tried out no less than 4 recipes so far and have not lost as yet.
Yeah, I am really excited. I want to actually try these
The smoothie
myself.
recipes are on point. They've actually improved the taste of my smoothies. You can verify that next time. And
They did. The lemon and ginger was just delightful.
And then the superfood soup. Oh, so good.
Super
I was so
good.
confident. I took it over to a friend's house.
The soup was super good.
It was super good.
Yeah, there we go. I gotta get at least one of those in there. If I'm not talking salmon jokes, I gotta get something that's kind of funny. So our 2 winners, Mariana Ballard from Louisville, Missouri. What is up? You are a winner of the Run Fast, Cook Fast, Eat Slow cookbook. Shazam. And Yalemi Pagan, right on from Tampa, Florida, you are a winner as well. Congratulations. I will reach out after the show is done with your ability to get connected with those guys and get your autographed books sent to you. Guys, it's always a pleasure being on here and chatting with all of you. Yes is right, Tam. No tomatoes, right? No tomatoes in the smoothies. Tina says, wahoo, getting excited for Revel Big Bear. Very exciting. Sam says, learned a ton today. Thanks, Paul. He was great. I'm sure he's on Strava if you guys want to find him. And again, thanks everyone for your questions as usual. I will be back next week again, sans Craig. That's French for without Craig, in case you're curious. And we'll be going strong. And then the week after, we will be back business as usual. So go enjoy your August, what's left of it, and enjoy that weekend. And, we'll talk to you guys later. See you later. Actually, here, I'm going to do the outro clip because the outro clip is really fun. Here we go.
A 10 to 15 minute hip routine for runners it's basically targeting every kind of angle of the hip that we can get into. So we've got a bunch of tissue stuff. We've got some actual joint and stretch stuff. So whether you've got glute pain or hip flexor issues or whatnot, going through this entire routine, again, 10 to 15 minutes, just sit down and watch a TV show and do it or something, is a great call for you. So let's dig into it. What's up, everyone? This is a 10 to 15 minute hip routine for runners it's basically targeting every kind of angle of the hip that we can get into. So we've got a bunch of tissue stuff, we've got some actual joint and stretch stuff. So whether you've got glute pain or hip flexor